Mexico, California, Texas region. It was a pretty bloody war because there was a lot of untrained or poorly skilled Mexican fighters and a lot of Americans. So,
well, they weren't trained. I mean, the Mexicans weren't. They were kind of like just thrown in. I think the average Mexican soldier was a conscript guy who just like sort of forced into the army and maybe didn't want to be there in the first place. It's pretty bloody. You're right. Now you mentioned some disputed territory, and you have that. It looks like you have that on your map, and we get a good idea. The disputed territory initially that sparked this was just between the Rio Grande and the Nueces River right there. Emily, can you point to that spot? Yeah, right. So it was that area right in there that kind of started the war. Well, how did it start? And President Polk probably had a hand in starting this war. How did this border dispute turn into a war?
Well, after some negotiations, money-wise, to try to dispute the land and try to get some more land for America.
Yeah, we offered to buy the land first, and then Mexico says no deal, basically.
And when it didn't work out, Polk sent General Zachary Taylor about 3,000 men down to the Rio Grande to just defend it. And so later on, some Mexican Mexico attacked a small band of American soldiers, and that pretty much started things on track to war.
And that was right across the river from Monterey, really. That was kind of, yeah, right there. There you go. So there was some question of, was this American territory or was this Mexican territory? Now, how did Polk present it? For the declaration, he got Congress to sign on to the war.
Yeah. Did he believe it was their land?
Well, Polk didn't. Polk said that it was American blood was shed on American soil. And he said, anytime you say that, I think that's fighting words. If you want to go to war, all you got to do is say, look, they killed Americans on American soil, which would be an act of war. But maybe it wasn't American soil. It might have been Mexican soil. And there were some in Congress. Well, actually, we'll talk about that with the next group. There were some in Congress who disputed the fact that maybe this was Mexican soil. Okay. Now, overall, the war seemed to go pretty well for the United States, didn't it?
Yeah.
What were some of the reasons why we were defeating Mexico so handily?
Well, we had obviously better trained men. I think at the time we were doing a little bit better than Mexico with economy-wise, so we had some better supplies and more rations. And
Cannon made a big difference. Yeah, we knew how to use cannon. It seemed like the Mexicans kept like shoving their men into our cannon fire, and it was not good for them. But it was an easy way to kill a bunch of Mexicans, I guess. Now, Taylor had a lot of success in the north, still, and won just about every battle in northern Mexico. But the seat of Mexican government, nice map there, far, far, far removed from the initial action in the north of Mexico. So Mexico still want to surrender. I mean, it's like, there's no way they're going to defeat us. They stubbornly refuse to surrender. So Polk gets Winfield Scott, and he sends him further south. So can we talk about that campaign?
Yeah, Polk sent Winfield Scott to go from New Orleans by boat, and he landed at Veracruz, and then fought, and they weren't opposed there, and then they fought their way inland through there and won the battle at Puebla. So, and I think September 14th, they got to Mexico City, raised the flags, and Mexicans still would surrender. And that was basically because they wanted to defend their honor and their national pride.
It's, again, it's hard to defeat an enemy who refuses to surrender. Let's back up just a little bit, because that landing, I want to talk about that amphibious landing. That was like the largest amphibious landing ever in American history up to that point in time. I know they were really worried about getting those troops from the ships on the shore, and then how did you say the Mexicans responded to that?
But initially when they landed, there were no Mexican troops there.
So it was they did all this training and planning, and then
yeah,
basically just walked ashore.
Yeah.
All right, and then from Veracruz all the way to Mexico City, was there anything interesting about that route that Winfield Scott took?
What he did was there were Mexicans blocking it at Puebla, so he outflanked them, went around them, captured all the Mexicans, and then went on to Mexico City.
That is the same essential route that Hernan Cortez
Yeah.
took like 300 years prior when he captured Mexico City. So yeah, I guess that was, you know, if you're in Mexico, you normally see soldiers coming down that road. It's going to be bad things for their capital city. Okay. Still on the outskirts of Mexico City, we had a nice story, or maybe a tragic story if you're Mexican, about the defense by Los Niños, I think the Mexicans call them. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, they're at the military academy, Chapultepec, that's how you pronounce it. And so basically they were doing a global battle against the Americans, and they were only like 15 or 16. They were our age, and they died, and they committed suicide.
Instead of being captured by the Americans.
Yeah.
So they're still honored to this day in Mexico. They honor the death of Los Niños. Okay? All right, so we got Mexico City, and still seemed like it was a hostile crowd there. What were some other problems that troops encountered? Aside from the hostile Mexicans, obviously, like supply problems, food problems, anything like that with the soldiers? Didn't it say that there were like more of them died from disease and eating bad food and drinking bad water? So again, it seemed like logistically, unfortunately, we weren't supporting our soldiers very well in this war. Not too many died in battle, but a lot of them did die from disease and dysentery. You know, it's a big killer.
Stephen Kearny, he was sent to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and they easily captured the New Mexico, and they claimed that as part of the United States. And then next, he traveled on to California.
Okay.
And with the help of John Sloat, they captured like Monterey, California, and that was a huge battle for the Californians because it like really established that they won California for the United States. And only 450 U.S. troops died, or people died, and
In capturing California, only 450
Yeah.
died.
I think I have the map on here. What? Oh, Monterey, California. It's like on the coast, so
It's sort of like it's north of San Francisco, I think, isn't it?
yeah.
Monterey. Okay. All right, and you had go ahead and hit backspace, and let's talk about our two war heroes. Now you do have to go to the keyboard for that. So let's go to his nickname. You guys know his nickname? Old Rough and Ready. That's what his soldiers called him, because he was always rough and ready for a battle. What kind of guy? Obviously, a pretty good military leader. What kind of guy was he?
He wasn't very smart, he wasn't good at politics at all, but somehow he got roped into running for president and won.
Because he was a war hero. He's a pretty good general, pretty practical, despite his lack of political ties. Okay, so that's Old Rough and Ready. Next guy who we have there was Winfield Scott. You know what his nickname was? Old Fuss and Feathers, they called him, because he was so big on like military protocol. What kind of commander was he?
I think he was a good one. He led his troops well in battle.
Yeah, I think a lot of historians even agree, like from the amphibious landing to to the capture of Mexico City, he made very few mistakes. All his decisions proved to be pretty good decisions, which is we can't always say that about American commanders in war, but it seems like he did everything right there to defeat the Mexicans. Okay? All right, well, I guess that kind of wraps up your presentation then, doesn't it?